1. Let me tell you about this fascinating 1973 Ford F-100 I just came across on Craigslist. This isn't your average classic pickup. This one's got quite a story to tell. Picture this: a one-owner F-100 that was basically time-capsulated in South Phoenix from 1980 until just a couple of years ago. We're talking about a short-box beauty with a 302 V8 under the hood, paired with a 3-speed manual transmission. And get this, it even has factory AC. The original yellow paint is still there, which is pretty incredible for a nearly 50-year-old truck. Now let's be real here. While the seller's asking $28,750, they've been completely transparent about the journey this truck has been on. After rescuing it from its decades-long slumber, they spent 8 months bringing it back to life. And it wasn't all smooth sailing. They've dealt with all those typical issues you'd expect from a vehicle that's sat for so long. You know how it goes: fix one thing, and another pops up. The amazing part? There's absolutely no rust on this baby. And the seller's even inviting potential buyers to verify this themselves. Sure, the original paint isn't perfect, but it's been polished up nicely, with the odometer showing 12,387 rolled over. And considering all the mechanical refurbishment that's been done, you're looking at a pretty solid classic truck. 2. Let me tell you about this fascinating 1978 Chevy El Camino I just found. At $7,800, this could be one of those rare, honest deals we all dream about. What makes this El Camino special is that it's a genuine one-owner vehicle, and you know how rare that is for a car over 40 years old. The odometer shows 93,000 original miles, which is pretty reasonable for its age. The sellers kept this beauty under original paint, which is black, always a classic choice. Here's what's really impressive. It's loaded with features that were pretty luxurious for 1978. Power steering, power disc brakes, tilt steering, cruise control, and AC. The interior is particularly interesting because the original seats were protected by covers all these years, so they're supposedly in perfect condition. That's like finding a time capsule. The seller's just done a major tune-up and it passed smog, which is always good news. They've also put on brand new tires, so that's one less thing to worry about. What's really catching my eye is the claim of no rust and perfect undercarriage. That's huge for these old cars, especially El Caminos. Now it is currently on non-op status, which means you'll need to register it, but there are no back fees to worry about. For $7,800, you're looking at a well-preserved piece of automotive history that combines car comfort with truck utility. These El Caminos are getting harder to find, especially in this kind of original condition with one owner. It's not perfect. No 40-plus-year-old car is. But it sounds like a solid example of these unique vehicles that could be a great daily driver or a fun weekend cruiser. 3. Let me tell you about this sweet 1953 Chevy pickup that just popped up on Craigslist for $28,000. This is one of those builds that really catches your attention. First off, we're talking about an Arizona truck here, and if you know anything about classics, you know that's usually good news for rust-free metal. This 53 has gone through a complete frame-on restoration, and the seller's got the receipts to prove they've spent more than the asking price making it happen. Under the hood, you'll find a rebuilt and upgraded 235 straight-six engine, paired with a 4-speed manual transmission. That's the classic powertrain these trucks deserve. The seller's gone through and replaced or upgraded pretty much everything. New brakes, fresh glass all around, new rubber seals, new tires, fresh chrome work, and they've even converted it to a 12-volt electrical system with all new wiring, which is a huge plus for reliability. The truck's sporting a fresh paint job in blue, and they've installed a new wood bed, always a beautiful touch on these vintage pickups. The interior's been redone with new upholstery, and there's a new exhaust system underneath. Now, being honest here, the seller mentions it needs some minor finishing touches to be extremely nice, so it's not quite perfect. But that's actually good news for the next owner. You're getting a solid, well-restored truck that you can put your own final touches on. 4. Let's talk about this 1966 Chevy C10 that just popped up for $11,000. You know, these classic C10s are getting harder to find at reasonable prices, so this one caught my attention. We're looking at a long bed model powered by a small block Chevy V8 paired with a turbo 350 automatic transmission, a reliable combination that's easy to maintain and find parts for. The sellers upgraded it with an HEI ignition system, which is a nice touch for better reliability and easier starting. The truck's sporting a yellow paint job, and while the seller doesn't go into detail about the paint condition, they've put some nice updates into this classic workhorse. There's a brand new seat inside, and check this out. They've installed a fresh red oak bed, which always looks fantastic on these old trucks. Rolling on new tires and wheels too, so that's a decent chunk of money you won't have to spend right away. With 109,000 miles showing, rolled over. What's really appealing here is that the seller emphasizes it's very dependable and runs and drives great. That's what you want to hear, a classic truck that you can actually use rather than just look at. At $11,000, or best offer, this seems like a fair entry point into classic C10 ownership. It's not a show truck, but it sounds like a solid driver that you could enjoy while gradually upgrading it to your taste. Remember, finding a running, driving classic truck with some key updates already done isn't easy at this price point these days. 5. We're looking at a really sweet find on Craigslist. A 1964 Chevy El Camino that's honestly looking pretty impressive for its age. Let me tell you, at $16,000, this could be a solid deal for the right buyer. This El Camino's got the classic 327 small block Chevy under the hood, paired with a turbo 350 automatic transmission. A reliable powertrain combo that's proven itself over the years. What really catches my attention is that this isn't just some unrestored survivor. It got a proper restoration back in 2002, including an engine rebuild and fresh paint job, and the owners got the paperwork to back it all up. The modern touches are pretty cool too. They've added a touchscreen stereo and backup camera, which makes this classic a bit more daily driver friendly. Power steering and power brakes are huge pluses, making it much more manageable than a stock 64. The seller mentions new tires and wheels, and importantly, they're claiming no rust, which is always a big deal on these old Chevys. From what the seller describes, it's in like-new condition and runs and drives perfect. Now, while I always recommend a thorough in-person inspection before buying any classic car, this El Camino sounds like it's been well cared for. The asking price of $16,000, or best offer, seems pretty fair for a restored El Camino in this condition, especially considering the desirable 327 engine and the modern upgrades. 6. We're checking out a real piece of American history on Craigslist, a 1954 Chevy 3100 pickup truck. Now, I've got to be straight with you all. This is definitely a project truck, and at $3,300, you need to know exactly what you're getting into. Let's be honest here. This truck needs a lot of work. The seller's being upfront about its condition, which I appreciate. We're looking at a non-running vehicle with the original straight-six 235 engine and 3-speed manual transmission. There's significant rust in the front fenders, doors, and cab floor pans. These are all major repair points you'll need to address. But here's why some of you might get excited about this. It's the desirable 4-window model, and it comes with a clean Arizona title. The frame is reportedly still solid, which is actually a big deal because that's your foundation for restoration. The bed and tailgate are in relatively decent shape, which is somewhat rare for these old workhorses. Some original parts are still present. You've got the factory GM wheels, original gauges, factory steering wheel, and even the original emblems on the hood. The grille, light bezels, and front bumper are straight, which is a plus. It's even got its factory spare tire bracket under the bed. These little original details can be hard to find. For $3,300, you're basically buying potential. This isn't a truck you're going to drive home. It's a project that needs a complete restoration. But here's the thing. These 54 3100S are becoming increasingly desirable, and parts availability is still good through various online sources. 7. We're looking at something really special. A 1959 Ford F100 that's commanding a serious asking price of $29,500. And let me tell you, this isn't your average farm truck anymore. What immediately catches the eye is that gorgeous two-tone paint job combining Indian turquoise, RM Demont #1117, with colonial white, #570. These colors are period-correct choices that really showcase the F-100's iconic late 50s styling. The fact that they used RM Diamond paint tells us this was a professional, high-quality paint job. The interior features a Lecara Mark X Classic steering wheel, which is a tasteful upgrade that adds a touch of elegance while maintaining a period-correct feel. With just 44,700 miles showing on the odometer, this truck has either been very well preserved or thoroughly restored. Though remember, with classics like this, always verify if those are original miles. Now, $29,500 is definitely on the higher end for an F-100. But these trucks have been steadily appreciating, especially well-done examples. The seller's listing is somewhat brief, so I'd strongly recommend seeing this one in person to check all the mechanicals, undercarriage, and get the full story on any restoration work. These 59 F-100S are really starting to come into their own as collectibles. They represent the end of Ford's flare-side era, and their design perfectly captures that late 50s automotive optimism. If this truck is as clean in person as it sounds on paper, it could be a solid investment for the right buyer. Just make sure to do your due diligence before making that kind of commitment. 8. We're checking out a pretty interesting find on Craigslist. A 1984 Dodge W Series pickup that's asking $9,500. Let me tell you what we're looking at here. This is one of those old-school Dodge workhorses with the V8 engine and a 3-speed automatic transmission. With 124,121 miles on the clock, it's definitely been used, but that's actually not too bad for a nearly 40-year-old truck. The seller emphasizes twice that it runs great, which is always good to hear. But you know how it goes. Always verify these claims in person. Now let's talk about that fuel economy. 9 mpg city and 12 mpg highway. Yep, you read that right. This thing drinks gas like it's going out of style, but hey, that's exactly what you'd expect from a heavy-duty 4x4 truck from the 80s. Just make sure your fuel budget can handle it. The gray-on-gray color scheme is pretty typical for these workhorses, and while it might not be the most exciting combination, it's practical and tends to age well. Being a W Series means it's got four-wheel drive, which makes it a capable off-roader or winter warrior. At $9,500, you're paying for a piece of American truck history. These Dodges were built like tanks, and if this one's been maintained well, it could still have plenty of life left. Just remember, parts for these old Dodges can sometimes be tricky to find, so factor that into your decision. 9. We're checking out something seriously cool and rare. A 1974 Dodge Ram Charger SE with the half-door convertible setup. At $12,000, this is a pretty unique piece of Mopar history that's definitely worth talking about. Let me tell you, finding an early Ram Charger with the half-door steel top configuration is like finding a needle in a haystack. This is a California survivor, which typically means better preservation thanks to that dry climate. The odometer shows 137,580 miles, but it's rolled over, so we're looking at actual miles being higher. But hey, that's normal for a vehicle of this vintage. What makes this particular Ram Charger special is its SE Special Edition trim package, complete with that sweet simulated wood dash and bucket seats with a console. Pretty fancy stuff for a 74. It's got the full-time 4x4 system, which was pretty advanced for its time, and front disc brakes, which is a nice safety feature. The seller's done some meaningful upgrades, including a new Edelbrock 4-barrel carburetor with fresh choke and kickdown linkage. The 3-speaker stereo and AC are nice period-correct amenities, though you'll want to check if the AC is still functioning. These old systems often need work. For $12,000, you're getting a pretty rare piece of off-road Americana. These first-gen Ram Chargers are getting harder to find, especially in convertible form, and even harder in this kind of condition. The included factory chrome rear bumper is a nice bonus. These often went missing over the years. 10. We're looking at something pretty interesting on Craigslist. A 1971 International 1100 pickup for $4,250. Let me be straight with you about this one because it's definitely a project truck that needs some love. First, let's talk about what makes this interesting. It's got the legendary 392 V8 engine. These were absolute workhorses and known for their torque, paired with a 4-speed manual transmission and 4x4 capability. That's a pretty desirable powertrain combo for these old internationals. Now here's the reality check. The engine turns over, but isn't currently running. That means you're buying a project that'll need some mechanical attention right off the bat. The seller's being upfront about the front floorboards needing replacement. That's a common issue with these old trucks, and you'll want to factor in the cost of repair. The good news is that the seller claims the undercarriage is clean and the truck is fairly solid outside of the floor issue. With 77,346 miles showing, it's not overly high mileage for its age, though as always with classics, verify if those are original miles. At $4,250, you're buying potential here. These international pickups are getting harder to find, and they've got a strong following among vintage truck enthusiasts. They're different from your typical Ford or Chevy of the era, which makes them stand out at shows. If you're mechanically inclined and looking for a unique project truck that isn't the usual suspect, this could be worth checking out. Just remember, parts for these can be trickier to find than for more common trucks of the era, so factor that into your decision. 11. We're checking out a pretty interesting 1984 Ford F-150 that's listed for $10,000. Let me give you the straight scoop on this California survivor. First off, we're looking at a 4x4 F-150 with a V8 and automatic transmission combo, always a solid setup for these trucks. The seller claims 40,000 miles, which is remarkably low for a nearly 40-year-old truck, though as always, you'll want to verify if those are original miles. Now let's talk condition. Being a California truck is definitely a plus. These trucks typically avoid the serious rust issues that plague examples from snowbelt states. The seller's being honest about the hood having some fade and surface rust, but claims the rest of the truck is rust-free, which is a big deal for these old Fords. The interior is described as near perfect, with all red upholstery, and being completely original is a huge plus for collectors. Original, unmodified F-150s from this era are getting harder to find, especially in 4x4 configuration. At $10,000 or best offer, you're paying for originality and California preservation. While that might seem steep to some, these 80s F-150s have been climbing in value, especially clean original examples. The price point puts it in the higher range, but if the condition matches the description, it could be justified. 12. We're looking at something pretty special. A one-owner 1971 Ford F-250 Ranger XLT Camper Special, affectionately known as Old Blue, listed at $10,000. This one's got a touching story behind it, being sold after the passing of the original owner. Let me tell you what makes this truck interesting. It's a higher trim Ranger XLT with the Camper Special package. That's a desirable combination. Under the hood, there's either a 360 or 390 V8, they're not sure which, paired with the bulletproof C6 automatic transmission. These powertrains are known for their reliability and torque. The odometer shows just 43,390 miles, and being a one-owner garaged vehicle adds credibility to that number. What's really impressive is that most of the original features still work. The AC, wipers, hazards, and running lights are all functioning. That's pretty rare for a truck of this vintage. The dual gas tanks are another great feature that adds to its practicality. Now, let's be honest about the current situation. The truck needs a new coil to get started. That's actually a relatively simple fix for these old Fords, but it's something you'll need to address right away. The seller mentions minimal rust, which is a huge plus for a 50-year-old truck. The Camper Special package means you get some nice extras like the bed storage compartment and tow mirrors. These were built tougher than standard F-250s to handle camper duties, so they typically have beefier components. 13. We're checking out a pretty interesting 1985 Dodge Ram D100 Prospector Edition that's listed for $11,900. Let me give you the straight scoop on this one. First off, this truck's got the legendary Slant 6 engine. And let me tell you, these engines are known for being nearly indestructible. Paired with an automatic transmission, it's a simple, reliable powertrain that just keeps going. Speaking of going, this one's clocked 200,000 original miles, which honestly isn't a big deal for these Slant 6s. They're known to run well beyond that when maintained. Now this is a Prospector Edition, which was a special trim package that added some nice features back in the day. The seller mentions it's mostly original except for the wheels, and it's been lowered by a previous owner. If you're into the lowered truck scene, that might be a plus, but if you're looking for a stock example, you'll need to factor in the cost of returning it to original height. At $11,900, we're looking at a pretty steep asking price for an 85 D100, even for a Prospector Edition. These trucks have been gaining some attention lately, but you'll want to carefully inspect everything before committing to that price point. The seller says it runs and drives, which is good, but at 200K miles, you'll want to check all the usual wear items. 14. We're looking at something pretty special, a 1971 Chevrolet K5 Blazer CST that's listed for $25,000. And let me tell you, this isn't your average K5. What we've got here is the upscale CST, custom sport truck trim level, which was the top-of-the-line package for these early Blazers. The color combination is absolutely stunning. That ochre exterior paired with saddle brown vinyl interior is a classic 70s combo that just works perfectly on these trucks. Under the hood, you're getting the robust 350 Ci V8 pushing out 255 horsepower. Plenty of muscle for both street and trail. It's matched to a 3-speed automatic transmission and a dual-range transfer case, which gives you serious off-road capability when you want it. The power steering is a welcome feature, as these early Blazers can be quite a handful without it. One of the coolest features of these first-gen K5s is the removable hardtop, and this one's got the white top that creates a beautiful two-tone effect. With 95,043 miles showing, it's been used but not abused. Pretty reasonable for a 50-year-old vehicle. At $25,000, we're definitely in serious collector territory here. But here's the thing. Clean, well-optioned first-gen Blazers, especially CST models, have been steadily climbing in value. The combination of the desirable CST trim, that classic color combo, and what appears to be a well-preserved example could justify the price for the right buyer. 15. We're looking at a 1984 Chevrolet Silverado that's caught my attention, listed at $16,500. Let's talk about this custom build that's apparently 80% complete. The first thing that jumps out is that odometer reading of 6,818 miles, which is likely since a rebuild or reset given this is a custom project. The seller mentions it's a custom truck with an 8-cylinder engine and automatic transmission, keeping that classic Chevy powertrain setup. Now I've got to be straight with you here. Whenever someone says a project is 80% complete and just needs your personal touch, that usually means there's still some significant work ahead. While the seller says it runs great, which is positive, you'll want to get a clear understanding of what makes up that remaining 20% before pulling the trigger. At $16,500, we're in serious money territory for an '84 Silverado, even a custom one. That price point suggests some significant investments in the customization, but you'll definitely want to get a detailed list of what's been done and what still needs completion. These square-body Chevys make excellent platforms for custom builds, and they've been climbing in value, especially clean examples. The fact that it's described as beautiful and in excellent condition is promising, but as with any custom build, you'll want to thoroughly inspect the quality of work that's been done. 16. We're looking at a 1995 Chevy Silverado 2500 4x4 that's listed for $5,100. And let me tell you, this could be an interesting find for the right buyer. What we've got here is a heavy-duty Silverado packing the legendary 454 big block V8. That's 7.4 liters of pure American muscle. With 140,000 miles on the clock, this engine is actually just getting broken in, as these powerhouses were built to last. The seller says it runs great, which is always good to hear with these big blocks. At $5,100, we're looking at a pretty reasonable price point for a 454 equipped 2500 4x4, especially in today's market. These trucks are known for their capability. They're absolute workhorses that can tow just about anything you throw at them. Just remember, that big 454 has quite an appetite for fuel. This isn't going to be your daily commuter unless you got a healthy gas budget. The truck's described as being in good condition, which for a nearly 30-year-old work truck is promising. The blue paint and 4x4 setup make this a classic combo for these mid-90s Chevys. Before pulling the trigger, you'll want to check all the usual suspects. Transmission condition, these automatics can be expensive to rebuild. 4x4 engagement, and the typical rust spots these trucks were prone to. Also, make sure all the emissions equipment is intact if you're in a state that requires testing. 17. We're checking out a pretty interesting 1979 K5 Blazer Cheyenne that's been given some serious modern upgrades, listed at $19,000. Let me tell you what makes this one special. First off, forget about the original powertrain. This K5's been treated to an LS 5.3 swap, which is a fantastic modern heart transplant. They've paired it with a Holley fuel injection system, which means reliable, modern fuel delivery and better drivability than the original setup. The Turbo 350 transmission is a solid choice for handling that LS power. What's cool about this build is they've kept the patina look on the outside. That's a love it or hate it thing, but it's definitely on trend right now. The 20-inch rims make a bold statement, though purists might prefer a more period-correct wheel setup. The modern touches continue with a pretty serious sound system. We're talking 2 sundown subs, an amp, and a full-range setup with 4 mids and highs. The AC is present, which is always a bonus in these old trucks, though you'll want to verify if it's working. At $19,000, you're paying for the modifications more than the base vehicle. The LS swap alone, when done right, can easily eat up a big chunk of that asking price. The Holley fuel injection system isn't cheap either. 18. We're looking at a seriously well-maintained 1978 Ford F250 Camper Special Super Cab that's listed for $7,500. And let me tell you, this seller has done their homework. First off, this is a camper special with the Super Cab configuration. That's a desirable combo for these old Fords. Under the hood, you've got the 400M V8 that's just received an extensive rebuild in 2024. We're talking new pistons, rings, bearings, RV cam, timing chain, and more. That's some serious investment in making this engine right. The odometer shows 44,010 miles with a rollover. But here's what's really impressive. The list of recent work is absolutely massive. Let me break down some highlights. New aluminum radiator, rebuilt Motorcraft 2-barrel carb, new transmission cooler, fresh brake system components, and a completely serviced C6 transmission. The Dana 60 Limited Slip Diff is a beast of a rear end, perfect for heavy hauling. The only notable issue mentioned is a cracked windshield, which is pretty minor considering everything that's been done to this truck. The suspension and steering are reported tight, which is impressive for a 46-year-old truck. At $7,500, considering the extensive mechanical refurbishment just completed, this could be a solid deal for someone looking for a well-sorted classic Ford truck. These camper specials were built tough, and with all this recent work, this one's ready for some serious use. 19. We're checking out a 1976 K5 Blazer that's listed for $13,500, and let me give you the straight scoop on this one. First off, we're looking at a custom K5 with the classic 350 CIV8 and automatic transmission combo. What makes this one interesting is it's got front lockers in the 4x4 system. That's a nice upgrade for serious off-road capability. The 12-bolt rear end is always a plus, being one of the stronger differentials from this era. The seller's being pretty transparent about both the good and the not-so-good. On the positive side, there's been some serious recent work done. New heavy-duty radiator, starter, transmission cooler, power steering gearbox, wheel bearings, hubs, and rotors. It's got headers with true dual exhaust, which should give it a nice sound and maybe a bit more power. Now let's talk about what needs attention. The AC needs servicing, and there are issues with the power windows, including the rear window regulators. There's also some minor damage on the passenger side fender that needs fixing. The odometer's broken at 129,000 miles, so actual mileage is unknown. The truck got a paint job and new custom black upholstery with red stitching back in 2019, and they've updated the front end with an '87 Blazer style, which is a popular modification. The dual battery setup is a nice touch for reliability. At $13,500, the seller's honest in saying this isn't a $40K restore. It's more of a driver quality K5, with some nice upgrades and a few issues to sort out. The price seems reasonable considering the recent mechanical work, though you'll want to factor in fixing those window regulators and AC if you want everything working. 20. We're diving into a classic workhorse that's been through some tough times, but still has a lot of potential. I'm talking about this 1970 Ford F-250 Ranger camper, Special 4x4 that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for just $3,500. Now let's be real here. The seller admits that this truck is in fair condition and it's going to need some serious TLC to get it back to its former glory. But hey, that's part of the charm, right? This F-250 has been around the block a few times, and it's got the battle scars to prove it. Under the hood, you'll find a beefy 8-cylinder engine that's ready to roar to life. And with a 4-speed manual transmission and a divorced transfer case, you know this truck means business when it comes to tackling tough terrain. Plus, with a Dana 60 rear axle and a Dana 44 closed knuckle front, this beast has the guts to handle whatever you throw at it. But here's the thing, folks. This truck has seen better days, and the seller is upfront about that. There's extensive rust that needs to be addressed if you want to bring this F-250 back to its former glory. But if you're looking for a work truck or an off-road rig, this could be the perfect candidate. The title is clean, so you won't have to worry about any legal headaches. And with a custom paint job, this truck has a unique look that's sure to turn heads.